Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at the first leg of the 50-cent pick 5 at Kentucky Downs on Saturday. Race number 8 is the grade 2 Franklin-Simpson. These are 3-year-olds going 6.5 on the lawn, only $1 million purse. Let's take a look at this overflow field. We have got 12 in the body of the race, 13 through 16 are also eligibles. You like betting races? Your morning line favorites 4-1. That's the number 8 Mustache Mike, who's cutting back in distance.
Yeah, I don't have any idea who's going to be favored in this race. Certainly Mustache is one of the primary contenders, Dan. I don't think dropping back in distance is a real issue for this horse, and his overall turf form is very good.
Our friends at Timeform US believe the pace could get hot in this year's edition of the Franklin-Simpson, the 7 Sweet Cherry Pie, the 5 Lugan Knight. These are horses that have shown speed on dirt or have chased faster fractions on dirt. Whether they can transfer that sort of speed on the turf remains to be seen. The 10 Two of a Kind is kind of a quick horse on the grass, showed that speed 2 starts back. I would think the 11 Close the Game Sugar can be close as well. Even Mustache, the 8, Mike. I know they have him pretty far back. I know that's route speed he's shown. I think he can get close as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think Mustache, that's kind of his game anyway. He has been running in longer races, so maybe he won't be able to get to the front here, but I just felt like he would go forward in this race. Sweet Cherry Pie certainly could be the horse, right up there on the lead, though, Dan. He's never run on turf, but he's bred for it, and he's a really talented dirt horse.
Let's talk a little bit about one horse trying turf for the first time. That's the number 1, Frosted Departure. And he's been useful on the dirt for trainer Kenny McPeak, a stakes-winning sprinter. He's graded stakes placed both sprinting and going 2 turns. I like him better going short. I'm not sure I love the Frosteds on the turf, so I'm going to take a wait-and-see approach, trying grass for the first time.
Yeah, I guess he has some pedigree, at least on the dam side. It's funny. I think if you look up Frosted as a sire, you're not gonna be blown away by his stats with turf runners. I actually don't mind the Frosteds on the grass. I don't know. There's a little pedigree here. His dirt form is okay. I preferred other horses in this race, though.
Private Creed is the number 2, and he just missed last time out in the Mahoney. It was a pretty good effort for a horse coming off a short layoff for a very good trainer in Steve Asmussen, and his running style might fit the race flow. If the pace is fast, you can count on this horse to kick late.
Yeah, that's true. This race might set up for him. Going 6.5 furlongs probably isn't that big a deal either. He did go this distance as a 2-year-old last year, and he did win here, a stakes race here. So I guess the distance is okay. Dan, I really don't know what to make of this horse. I liked him as a 2-year-old. I haven't really liked him so far as a 3-year-old. I think there are ways to look at the Mahoney last time and say, you know what? He finally turned it around and ran another good race. And I'm not sure if that's how I'm looking at the Mahoney. At 9-2, I decided to look elsewhere, but I know this horse has a race in him that would make him tough.
Perhaps the number 3, Monsieur Coco, is ready for his best in this 3rd start of the year, racing himself potentially back into shape. He's run well twice off of the layoff. Now he's taking a little bit of a step up in class. So it's a bit of an ask for this horse, but he does have some upside.
Yeah, he does. He's very lightly raced. He's a maiden on the grass at this point, but he's so lightly raced that maybe you don't want to hold it against him. It does kind of feel like this is a good surface for him, even though he hasn't won on it. But man, does he have to improve by, it seems like quite a bit if he's going to be effective against this field.
I don't mind horses cutting back in distance, going 6.5 on the turf, whether it be going down the hill at Santa Anita or here at Kentucky Downs. The 4 Bat Flip has been running in mile races. He was going into his most recent start, the Hall of Fame, in very good form, and I think he just got skunked by the post position.
Yeah, it was his first start off of a very long layoff there, so he had that working against him anyway. Also happened to be in a pretty strong running of the Hall of Fame, so he had that working against him. And then he drew post 9. And, whether you thought he was going to be effective in there or not, Dan, Javier Castellano rode great at Saratoga, but that wasn't his finest moment in the Hall of Fame. He gave this horse no chance with the trip that he gave him. So I just kind of feel like it's the kind of race you just want to maybe give him a little bit of a break for and base what you think about him off his 2-year-old form. And personally, I thought his 2-year-old form was really good. I think this horse is going to run a lot better in here.
20-1 on the morning line for the top-notch connections. Javier Castellano, Todd Pletcher, second off the layoff. Lugan Knight is up next, and this horse did some good things on dirt earlier this year. He won the Jerome. I thought he was very game to win that race, but it was worth noting it was over a wet track. They ran 1-2 all the way around, and since then, Lugan Knight has yet to be able to find that form. So they're going to switch to the turf, and I guess he has some turf pedigree. I don't mind Golden Sense on grass.
Yeah, I don't mind Golden Sense as a turf horse either. The Dam didn't run on the grass, but she's a sister to a graded stakes winner on the turf. So there's turf pedigree here. This horse's dirt form's okay. He is one of those horses, though. He's got to be a lot better on turf than he is on dirt. If you think that's going to be the case here, you're going to get a great price.
Playlist is up next, and this horse is in razor-sharp form for trainer Wesley Ward. He's won his last 3 starts, including this race at Saratoga back in the middle of July, a second-level allowance, and John Velasquez just gave this horse a perfect trip. He settled into the pocket, he got the seam once he eased out into the stretch, and Playlist is very game to win.
Yeah, I like what she's done so far this year, Dan. This is worth pointing out. This is a filly who's going to take on the boys in this race, but she's beating older horses here. She got a really good trip in this race, but she also really ran. She was super impressive winning off the layoff back in June when she got back on the turf. That was a really strong performance at a big price. I really like her form. I don't know if this is the right spot, but I think this filly's pretty good.
There are things to like about the 7 Sweet Cherry Pie. He is very lightly raced. He just won a stakes race in an off-turf event at Monmouth, so we know he's in good form. We know he has good speed after checking out the pace projector, and he's got plenty of grass pedigree. Twirling Candy, excellent on the turf. Kitten's Joy Mare, strong family.
Yeah, for a trainer who does really, really good work with turf sprinters as well, Irad Ortiz is going to take them out here. To me, there's a lot to like about this horse, even though he's never run on the surface, so you have no idea whether he's going to be able to produce his best race here. I really like him as a dirt horse. He has a pretty big turf pedigree. He's fast, but I don't think he needs the lead to be effective. I think there are things to like about this horse, Dan. I'll wait and see what kind of price he is. I don't think I'd want to go too short on him, but I think this horse is good, and I want to use him.
Mustache is already a graded stakes winner on the turf. He won going 2 turns in the Transylvania during the Keeneland Spring Meet. He's been facing good competition at middle distances. Gigante is going to run in the Virginia Derby on Saturday. Najarak has done some nice things on the turf. He fits from a class standpoint. I think cutting back in distance, he can work out a good trip in the second flighter, so he'll be in the thick of things when they turn into the long stretch.
Yeah, he's not that difficult to make a case for, even though the wins are a little bit few and far between for him. He's really held his own against some really, really good turf horses. And like you, I don't really think turning back to 6.5 is a big deal for this horse. I can't say that I've, ever been his biggest fan, really, but he's obviously a contender in here.
The 9 Golden Bandit looked good when switched to the turf, going 7.5 at Canterbury 3 starts back. I'm not sure he beat much that day. I thought that was a fine performance, led to his win in the Canterbury Derby. And maybe last time out, it was just a combination of too tough competition, too far of a distance going 1 1/8. So now he cuts back to 6.5, but he's still facing a very tough field.
Yeah, he's just a really tough call in here because it certainly could have been the distance that worked against him last time. It could have also been that they moved him up into a much tougher race, and he wasn't up for it. I mean, he did look good winning those races 2 and 3 back, but against way weaker horses.
2 of a Kind was a very precocious 2-year-old for trainer Brian Lynch. He won the Tremont, and then he went to the layoff. He was in some tough spots earlier this year at 3 on dirt. They moved him to the turf, and I like both of his efforts on the grass, even though he failed to win either one of them. The turf debut, the Palisades at Keeneland, he came with a nice, strong late run against a good-looking winner. And then last time out, he did all the dirty work on the lead. He put away a pace presser, and he was able to hold second gamely. The question is, can he deal with a fast pace if he's a need-the-lead type? I wonder. I think he might be able to sit just a little bit.
Yeah, can he deal with a faster pace if the pace is indeed fast? And I think you do have to question the distance of this race a little bit too, Dan. He's really a short sprinter. The 6.5 is going to play long at Kentucky Downs, so I don't know, man. Maybe that'll work against him. I think I like his efforts in those 2 turf races in Kentucky. I just don't like those races overall. That's my only issue with this horse. He's a good price.
His last race was on the dirt, an off-turf race at Saratoga. Maybe it got him a little bit of fitness. I agree with you. I think the distance is a question. Close the game, Sugar. 3 starts, and he's a half length away from being unbeaten. He's 2 for 2 on turf. He's a stakes winner at Saratoga. Things worked out for him in the Mahoney, Mike. He was able to sit in behind horses for a second. It looked like he'd be blocked. Boy, that hole opened up beautifully for Close the Game, Sugar. He drives through down towards the inside, and he always seems to find a little more.
Yeah, that's how I looked at it too. I mean, he did that. This trip really did work out from that Private Creed, the 7 on the outside, who's trying to gain late ground here, and he's just not quite getting there. This horse, he got a great trip in there, Dan, and maybe that's what made all the difference. When I watched that race though, and when I watched it over again, it looked to me like 5.5 might have even been too short for this horse. Like he was just getting warmed up when they started getting to the wire there, and I think he was looking for a little bit more ground. That's one of the things that I like about this horse, aside from everything else. He's been good in all 3 of his starts, and he's very lightly raced.
I think I want to use the 12 behind enemy lines in any kind of multiple race wager like the pick 5. He won sprinting, albeit on synthetic, overseas in Europe. And ever since he came over here, they've run him in basically 2-turn spots against tough horses. He was in against Carl Spackler last time out in the Hall of Fame, Major Dude, Web Slinger. These are good, solid horses. His first start in North America was against weaker competition, but he showed good tactical speed and fired on home. I think this horse is a late threat.
Yeah, I won't argue with any of that stuff. I mean, I think we talked about this horse a little bit going into that Hall of Fame too, Dan, and we didn't like pick him in that race. We both thought he was interesting. He's even more interesting in this race, and I don't mind him cutting back to a shorter distance either.
13 through 16 on the also eligible list. I guess in the 4, Mike, Mischievous Angel. He's so lightly raced for Chad and Irad. They ran him in the Hall of Fame second time out. Didn't work out for him. Maybe he deserves a shot in here if he gets in.
Yeah, he's very lightly raced. I mean, obviously, if he gets in, he's going to take a ton of money in this race. So that would be your call if you wanted to take some kind of short price on him. I'm a little bit a fan of the 16, Son of a Birch. He's one of those horses I think is better than he looks on paper. He's very unlikely to get in here, though.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Franklin-Simpson. Again, it kicks off at pick 5. You're going with Backflip. Giant morning line price for these kind of connections. Plenty of excuses for his last race. The layoff alone is an excuse. The trip didn't work out. Now he's cutting back in distance with a race under his belt. I don't think you can just walk away from 20 to 1. Whether you get that price or not, it's a different story, but you're going to get a price.
Yeah, he's got to be a fair price in this race. I really liked him as a 2-year-old, Dan. He had so many excuses for the Hall of Fame last time that it's not the kind of race that I want to hold against him. I want to give him a chance in here. His kind of horse at anything like half that morning line price, I could bet this horse.
You mentioned the concerns with 2 of a kind, and pace is one of them. Distance to me is the major concern for 2 of a kind. I'm not sure if 6.5 over a testing surface at Kentucky Downs is what he wants, but he's got to be a good price in this race, and I think he's going to be forwardly placed. And if some of these dirt horses don't translate to turf, maybe he's in front when they turn into the stretch. I also want to use the 12 cutting back in distance, maybe a little class drop there as well. 4, 7, 11, 6 for Mike, 10, 12, 11, 6 for me. It's the Franklin-Simpson on just a packed card at Kentucky Downs on Saturday. Good luck.